All right, good afternoon, interwebs. It's the second video today. It's March 22nd. I had mentioned earlier today that I was planning to do a video that talks a little bit about the specific symptoms that led to the orthopedist ordering that second MRI. So if you're following previous videos, you know, starting last March, I got some pain consistent with sciatica. It turned out that imaging showed I had a bulging disc and all that. I ended up seeing an orthopedist in the middle of July. We talked about some symptoms that I was having, right? The three specific symptoms that gave him concern was I was having urinary issues. I couldn't maintain a stream. There was a slight burning sensation, but it was kind of higher up. It wasn't like when it was coming out. It was just a little higher up, slight burning, a little bit of tingling sensation here and there. When I talk about my butt problems, it was a dedicated pain to the upper inside of my left butt cheek. It was like high up. It was more consistent with hip pain. It was just to the left of the bottom of my spine, my tailbone. And it was just a nagging, dull, on a scale of 1 to 10, usually sitting at a 5 comfortably. None of the meds I was on, meloxicam or gabapentin, seemed to touch that at all. Even my exercises, when the sciatica pain would move up my leg and sometimes disappear completely, I could still feel it in that spot. And it felt just like a lingering, deep bruise from getting hit or something. Like I used to play sports, and I remember one time getting hit in the other side with a face mask, and it was bruised, and it lasted all season. It was just nagging. That's more consistent with the type of pain that it was. And then the third one was maintaining an erection. Anytime I got one, being completely forthcoming here, it was short-lived, and it went away very, very quickly and suddenly. So with all those things, the orthopedist was like, your bulge just can't cause those. He ordered that second MRI, which discovered the tumor sitting right in that spot just outside my rectum. So as I explained in a previous video, where the rectum wall is normal like this spot was bulging in, and that's kind of what it looked like, right? So it hadn't broken through or anything like that. So that made getting a biopsy of it very hard. That's why I ended up going under anesthesia in September to get the biopsy, where they went in, cut it open, took samples of the actual tumor, and that's where they found out that it was HPV related, P16 specific, anal cancer, right? And we're at 3 minutes. This is going to be longer than that. Just to get the information out. So we had those symptoms. Those are the three specific symptoms that maintained themselves through the whole fall, through all of treatment. And, I got put on morphine and some other drugs here and there to just manage different symptoms and whatnot. The pain got really bad right around the time that treatment started. I don't know if it was just a result of all of the agitation from cutting it open and messing with it and doing all of that. But all throughout treatment, the pain persisted. I was on morphine, a very dedicated regimen. For me, fortunately, I don't suffer from the disease of addiction, so I didn't run into any long-term problems with that. I don't have those pains anymore. I'm not on it anymore. The treatment worked really, really well. So that's a huge benefit. But those were the three main symptoms, and they got bad. There were a few times when I would ask, scale of 1 to 10, 12. Tears. It got emotional sometimes. And I also had some side effects from some of the meds that I was on. I don't want to pretend like that's not the case. I spent a lot of time while on the morphine dealing with sudden cold chills. Every night at 6:40 p.m., I would just start freezing. Don't know why. Just, hey, you're frozen. Bundled up, didn't matter, it couldn't get warm. I had cold sweats all the time. I don't know if that was related to medications or just the radiation or the combination of chemo and radiation. But once we got to about December, the pain started going away. Now, if you're not familiar with how radiation and chemo and a tumor situation like that works is we did 30 business days of radiation where they put me in the machine. The radiation lasted about 5 to 7 minutes. It's called external beam radiation. They were firing protons into it. And I had a little screen made over me, like a mesh thing, and they used a circular machine. We have some pictures and videos of that. Maybe we'll post that just so everyone can see what that looked like. But between the radiation and the chemo, it was meant to keep the cancer localized, and it was a curative response, right? That's what radiation is described to us as curative. And the intent of it was to eradicate the tumor. Worst case scenario, the hope was that we could shrink it enough that we could remove it. Best case scenario is that the treatment would be curative and get rid of it. Well, that part seemed to have worked, right? The scans that I had showed, as written by the radiology technician who read the most recent MRI, there's no evidence of disease. There's just some residual scar tissue in there that my body will process and whatnot. So those 3 symptoms that I was having, they're gone. I do not have those anymore. I do still have a little sciatica stuff. I'm going in Monday for an MRI in my lumbar region because I hasn't even been looked at since last summer. We kind of pushed that away while going through treatment and whatnot. Still have a little bit of sciatica pain. Still do my stretches. They do seem to still help. In that area to the upper right of my left butt cheek, right next to my tailbone, I do periodically get a little tinge of pain in the area, but the prevailing thought on that is it's because there's still some scar tissue in there and moving around and still pushing up against some things, so I'll have a little bit of that until the scar tissue has been processed through and whatnot. There may also be surgery in the future at some point to remove scar tissue or anything like that, but of course, with the metastasized anal cancer moving into a different place of my body, that's an afterthought we'll worry about in the future. Right now, we just need to worry about the fact that it moved. We need to make sure it's nowhere else in my body. That's why we chose the chemo route today. I don't know who out there, there's been a few comments about feeling similar things in similar areas. Some folks out there have also seen tumors in that area or in other areas based on pain, where maybe it was a back issue or a sciatica thing that led them to the doctor in the first place. And I'll say this much. When you're talking to your doctor, because this is my experience, when I'm talking to that orthopedist, he showed me the bulge. We talked at length about the bulge. We talked about getting a shot in my back to kind of numb the area, help the healing process, and get rid of some of the pain because the pain was bad. And it was me that said to him at the end, he asked, is there anything else you want to talk about? It was me that said to him, I still have these other 3 symptoms we didn't talk about. And so we talked about it. And I think that's the important part there that I hope everyone takes from this story. Ask your questions. I understand. I work in the healthcare field and the administrative side, and I've been in here my whole career. I understand that these are the professionals, but they can only do as good of a job with the information that you give them as the patient. So don't let any questions go unanswered. Ask the questions. If you ever find yourself in a situation with a doc who's just not willing to listen to the question and give it its due diligence, find a second opinion. That's why second opinions exist. They're covered. They have to be covered by all medical insurance policies out there. Yeah, you might have issues with it once in a great while, but second opinions are covered, at least today still. So don't rest on what you're being told. Don't be embarrassed to ask the question. Ask the questions. If he did not prompt me to tell him these extra symptoms, I may never have mentioned it. Okay? So we're up against 10 minutes. I'll end it there. Comments, questions, let me know, and I'll follow up with anything. But just know, if you're having those pains, get them checked. It could be something else.